Spiritually Speaking on urbannationradio.com. Our call-in number is 313-867-1305 or 313-867-1306. I am Pastor Franklin, and today we are debuting Spiritually Speaking, and I am so glad to have in studio with me today the infamous Dr. Kofi. Dr. Kofi, and we're going to be talking about today with a new group that is has formed in the community called the Jerry Palmer Group. And before we get started, I'm going to just kind of ask Dr. Kofi to introduce herself. Most of you who are listening in our listening audience know a lot about her. I won't try to introduce her because she is such an icon in our community and does a lot of work and service in our community. And so joining us, I should also mention, will be Reverend Ingrid Davis and Alicia Howard, one of the younger members of the Jerry Palmer Group. And so before we get into what Jerry Palmer Group is all about, Dr. Kofi, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been around this community and living in Detroit, and you know the whole history.
You got another hour?
And you can do that in about 5 minutes, I know.
You got another hour? I'm going to try 2 minutes and less. First, I want to thank you for inviting us to be on your show, Reverend Darlene Franklin, and you too are an icon. I can say that as well, a pioneer in our community. So I feel humbled to be here and to be invited to be a part of this. So just a little bit about myself, just so your listeners know that I am a fully licensed clinical psychologist, so some of the words I use might be a little, you know what I'm saying. So, but I love what I do. I work full-time at the juvenile court, which is the Third Circuit Court Family Division, and there's a psychiatric clinic down there called the Clinic for Child Studies. So I work with adjudicated youth. I do individual, group, and family therapy there. I also do some psychotherapy on the side, couples, families, children, adolescents, adults. I do some teaching. I've taught at University of Michigan in their Women's Studies department there. I've taught Introduction to LGBT Studies. I've taught gender and group process in a multicultural context. And right now I'm at the Michigan School of Professional Psychology. And I enjoy it there, teach family therapy there, and I'm a community organizer. I do trainings, cultural competency trainings. I'm working with LGBTs, LGBT youth. I've done some articles on Black lesbian adolescents because their voices don't get out there very much in my field of psychology. I'm also a local president of the Association of Black Psychologists, and I'm a member of the American Psychological Association as well as the Association for Women in Psychology. I have also co-founded the Ruth Ellis Center in Highland Park, where we serve homeless, runaway, and displaced LGBTQ youth who get kicked out of their homes. A lot of times when it's discovered that they are lesbian, gay, bi-attractional, or transgender. And I do use the word attractionality instead of sexuality, unless I'm talking about sexuality, behavior. So that's the term you'll hear me talk about anyway. So, long story short, that's kind of who I am. And I am single, by the way, so I don't know if you wanted that either, but.
Well, this is a show where you can be uncomfortable to get it out there and
put it on out there, spiritually speaking.
And put it out there. And spiritually speaking is just about that. It's not all about religious dogma or because I'm a pastor and ordained clergy, but it is about the getting to the heart of the matter of what's going on in our communities. And so this is going to be a show that we will talk about spiritual things and church and all of that, but this topic today, of course, is about masculine identified lesbians, and you know, which I am one, and you know, and so we need to. We're often overlooked in community. We're often misunderstood, and so I wanted to shed light on that. And so before we talk about the group in itself and what its mission is, tell us about Jerry Palmer. Who is Jerry Palmer? Come on in, Pastor. Come on in, Pastor. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in.
Praise the Lord.
Before we get into that, this is sit on down.
Sit on down, son.
All right, how you doing?
Reverend Inger Davis. We're gonna let you introduce yourself, catch your breath, and okay.
Yeah.
She all dutied up, didn't she? And catch your breath. Okay, she caught her breath.
All right.
And share with us who you are, where you're pastor, and just tell us something about yourself.
Well, praise the Lord, everybody. I'm Reverend Inger Davis from Detroit, Michigan. I'm pastor and co-pastoring the ministry, Walk by Faith Outreach Ministry. We're a church that loves God and His people. We have church on Saturdays at 12:30. We have Bible class at 7:30, and we've been in ministry going on our second year. And we're coming up to our second year anniversary celebrating at the International Institute of Arts, November the 22nd and the 23rd. So I've been a nurse for 25 years and been ordained since 2004. And I've been working, doing both jobs, and I don't know how I'm still gotten bigger, but I've gotten bigger. but I'm still moving on and pressing on with whatever God has me to do.
Okay. One of the stipulations for you being on the show is you have to leave your cufflinks. So I just want to let you know that you won't make it out the door without.
And you could give me that tie too.
But what we were talking about is and I'm sure you two know. You've had hands-on experience with Jerry Palmer. Talk about Jerry Palmer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can't say enough about Jerry Palmer, and I wish Cynthia Worthy, and maybe she'll call in, will call in. But I've been out as a lesbian since 1979. And back during those days, I was very awkward. I was 22 years old at the time. And I really didn't know how to socialize with women very much, right? And so I managed to meet some older people in the community, some older couples, right? One of them was Jerry and her partner. Now Jerry's somebody, when you look at her, you think, wow, she looks like a man, right? I mean, that's your first impression, but then you find out she's a woman. But Jerry was somebody that was very, a huge presence in my life because she became a role model and mentor to me without my saying that she was a role model and mentor. She showed me some things about how to communicate and to treat women with respect.
Yes.
I mean, I was in a club one time and she told me, you know, when you get off the dance floor with someone you're dancing with, you take her back to your seat.
Okay.
And her voice is in my head every time I dance with somebody, you know, a woman at a club. So she was that voice for me, and she was sort of like that one that kind of held my hand, say, no, you shouldn't do that, but you should do that. Kind of like my moral reasoning in the black lesbian community. And so she inspired the name of our group because she felt free to be who she was and all of who she was. And it didn't matter to her if people thought she was a man. But she was very powerful to us in that she dared to be who she was. That's where we got our slogan from, was women who dared to be ourselves. And I'm sure Reverend Inger has a story to tell too.
Well, I used to call her Uncle Jerry.
Uncle Jerry.
Uncle Jerry and Aunt Cynthia. I came out in '84. So during those times, we were just learning how to be free in our lesbianism. I was a church girl, so I was coming in the bars with my dress on and feeling kind of uncomfortable, but didn't realize who I was or what I was at that particular time. And as you grow into being who you are and who yourself, you have, like you say, you have mentors. One of my mentors was Carol Jean and Jerry, and they taught me how to be in my soft look, be as hard as, quote unquote, as they say, as you possibly can, as far as treating ladies as ladies, standing up when they leave the table, opening the door, making sure they're in, making sure you're walking on the outside and things like that. So we were kind of trained in as masculine as we could, but yet still remaining as feminine as a woman that we could as well. So I thank them for that, because if you actually saw them, Carol Jean was very eccentric with all her glasses and her colors and things like that, but you could not ever tell that she was not MIL. And as far as Jerry, her situation was just as simple as Dr. Kofi said. She had to do what she had to do for that time frame, and each of us have gone into generations. Well, she had the 50s and the 60s. Dr. Kofi had the 70s and the 80s, and I came into the 80s and 90s. So each decade has become a little bit more free at expressing themselves. And unfortunately, we have Jerry Springer to thank for that showed the outside in the wrong way, and made it more sexual than emotional. But we're here, and we're here to stay. So. And I learned that from
Well, I must say that I'm being from New Jersey, missed all of that good training and good history. But I learned, I caught up. I think I just knew it. But now, in talking about the group, there is a in your mission statement, and I don't have that. I have it, but I have the wrong one. That I wanted to read that, or did you want to read it? I wanted to read that, and it says that the mission of the Jerry Palmer Group is to combine the talents of self-identified masculine lesbians into a cohesive effort to give validation, support, and resources to MILs of all ages in the Detroit metropolitan area, as well as across the country where such support is needed. This grassroots self-reliant group specializes in educating the public about the social and cultural experiences of African American MILs and others of color, because this is a population often neglected, devalued, and rarely highlighted in national discussions about the LGBT community. Since this is a self-help peer support organization, MILs serve as leaders in proactively managing the programs of this collective group. The JPG strives to collaborate and partner with similar groups such as Brooklyn Boyhood, Brown Boy Project, Unity Fellowship Church Movement, MIL Ministry, and Butch Voices to encourage participation in the intersected social justice movements where women of color are marginalized and disempowered. What really stood out for me in this mission statement is, if you would, speak to the social, the youth too, and the social and cultural experiences. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the idea really about this group is to create leadership, activism, and fellowship among Black MILs particularly. And why Black MILs? Because race still matters in this country. All you gotta do is turn the radio or TV on, turn CNN on these days. Race still matters, and then when you intersect race with gender, and then with gender expression and gender identity, then you've got even more oppressed, marginalized communities. And the idea is also to create a new conversation about studs, for example. You know, one that's not what you were saying, sexualized, pathologized, criminalized, and male-centered. The idea is really to make clear that we are women, but we're a special type of women, misunderstood women, but we're masculine by nature, not masculinized. No one masculinized us. We're naturally masculine. We're evidence, really, that masculinity can exist in the female body, really, and that this masculinity is not male masculinity, but a female masculinity, and that there's a difference between the two. And there's actually a book called Female Masculinity, just to let your listeners know if they want to read a little bit more about that. But, you know, in terms of who we are, we're on that spectrum of gender expression, you know, masculinity and femininity. I don't know, Genderbread Person is a really good resource for us a lot of times when we're talking about what gender expression is all about. Not all men are masculine, and not all women are feminine, but there are other genders. But we really don't talk about these issues so much. You know, when I came out, we were just talking about studs and femmes. And then if you weren't a stud and femme, you were pretty much an outcast.
Confused.
You know, confused.
Somebody referred as we're a third sex, whatever that is.
But we're an oppressed minority. is what I'm trying to answer your question. We're an oppressed, marginalized minority, often misunderstood, like you were saying, and we're told we want to be men or boys, but no one stops to have a conversation to hear our story.
How do you, did you have anything?
No.
How do you, in that, a young age, you know, how did you negotiate that? I'm sure we didn't just wake up one morning, well, I didn't. You know, we went from several names, tomboy, ugly names, bullgagger, treated bad in school.
Lord have mercy.
But talk about a little bit how you negotiate. How did you feel in that?
Well, I don't know. I'm gonna go from
In
my
that
point of
young
view,
body,
okay?
please.
Because I had several conflicts because I was a church girl. Okay, so I was an apostolic church girl, and with my apostolic background, who I wanted to be was an abomination. Okay, so I was going against all types of grains. I was going against the fact that I like girls. Okay, then I was going with the fact that I was a girl that really seriously felt like there's a little boy inside me, you know what I'm saying? And was afraid to express it, but yet I was on all the sports. I play the drums, you know what I'm saying? I do various things that would allow you to see that was the formation of it. But as I got older, I came into myself knowing, and it took some time, it took some pain, it took some time, because then you have the traumatics and with your family.
Can you hold that,
Yeah.
hold that thought right now? Log on to, we'd like to, for you, this is Spiritually Speaking, to log on to urbannationradio.com. Our call number is 313-867-1305, 313-867-1306, where the topic is going on for the Jerry Palmer group with masculine identified lesbians.
That's it.
Let us take a break. We'll be right back at you. Welcome back to Spiritually Speaking. Do call in to the show or log on to urbannationradio.com. The call-in number is 313-867-1305. We're having a wonderful time here with Dr. Kofi and Reverend Inger Davis. It's hard for me to call her Reverend because I raised her kind of. Reverend Inger Davis.
Yeah, my son.
And
That's it.
they are here representing, this is the leadership of the Jerry Palmer group. So, do you remember that thought, Reverend, or did you forget it?
Well, you know, I didn't got so many scriptures in your head, no, it's fine. But what I was saying was that as I came out, there were different aspects. I think the question was, how did I know as a youth what was going on in my mind and my change in my body and things like that regarding me being an MIL? And that was one of my questions. So, like I said, me personally, and I came out as a looking femme, okay? Which means that I was very feminine. I wore dresses, I wore heels, because they called me Sanctified Sheila E. I used to play my drums in heels. So as I came out and saw people that were studs and people in the variation of studs, we had the real hard studs that would look more masculine, or as more manly. Then you have the powder puff studs, which could cross, as I say, they do the cross in between, meaning you could take that person home to mama. And then you had the others where they were androgynous. So my time frame came out when it was beginning to be very popular to be experimental in college. Okay, so therefore when the girls came back from college, you didn't know, you had the lipstick lesbians, and their personality was, you could tell because of the personality, one of the personalities was more dominant than the other, and that's the other word we used was dominant. Dom. So as I grew into who I am today, I realized that I didn't want to wear, I couldn't wear dresses anymore. It just didn't seem, it made me feel like I was doing a drag show. You know what I'm saying? Because the real me didn't come out. The first time I put on a suit, I felt so relaxed, so into myself, until that's when I knew. And I think that was like maybe about 4 years or 5 years after I came out, because I was going through that transitional stage, because my mom didn't know, so I didn't want to make her upset, you know what I'm saying? I still was in my apostolic faith church, didn't want to be ostracized from the church, so I was battling all of that until I had just made up in my mind that, hey, this is me,
And that
I'm going to do it.
that is going to be one of my shows, and how we negotiate the church. But we've heard a lot of things here. We've heard a lot of terms. We've heard a lot of, and I'm sure, you know, people I talk to, and especially some of my straight co-workers that I talk to about on the heels of the last show that I was involved in here, about how we were talking about masculine identified lesbians and going to the doctor and things and getting our pap smears and stuff. And I talked to other women about that, and they were like, "But you're all women. You're all women. What difference does it make? What, you know?" So we've heard a lot of different a lot of different terms here. So I'm going to ask you to speak to some of that things. I've heard Brista, lipstick lesbian, and stud. I remember somebody called me a stud the first time. I didn't know what that was till I moved to Detroit, and I started screaming because I just was me. You know, I was just me. I was more what you would call androgynous. And somebody said, "Oh no, you're a stud," and I just started screaming. I think I ran out the room or something like that. But at any rate, talk to us about some of that language, so people can get an idea of how, you know, how it changes.
Every time this topic comes up, the language has to come up some kind of way, and there's no way in a matter of 20 minutes we can explain all of that. But your listeners need to know that we're realizing, or at least the Jerry Palmer Group is realizing, that we're part of a national movement that's going on, a growing national movement of MILs, which stands for masculine identified lesbians. And MIL is simply a masculine woman who is attracted to women. It says something about who we're attracted to, but it also says something about our gender expression, that we're masculine, and our gender, which is women. All three identities in one. And so words that have been used to refer to MILs have been studs, butches, tomboys, boys, but it's spelled B-O-I. So you know it's a woman, if it's spelled B-O-I. It's kind of like our own way of saying it. We're redefining our own language. DOMS, like she was saying earlier, stands for dominant. AGs. AG stands for aggressives. A lot of East Coast, and a lot of it has to do geographically. So those on the East Coast tend to use AGs for aggressives. And even Jaspers, that's something that those in the 60s, 50s, and 60s used to use. I learned that from an older African-American stud. And we're trying to redefine the words used for us, because we don't respond when someone calls us ma'am or lady. I mean, we know we're women, but lady and ma'am are much more feminine and don't fit us. And so we're in the process of trying to figure out what words will work for us. And what are we going to do? How do we cope when we walk in a restaurant and somebody calls us, "Hi ladies," or "lady," or whatever? Do we have time to stop and have an educational conversation about why not to use that for me? So we're kind of in a process of what to use. Like Brista is a mixture of sister and brother, kind of letting people know that there are more than two genders, because gender is so binary. There's either masculine or feminine. There's either male or female. There's either gay or lesbian. Binary, either or. And so with us, we give people an identity complex. I heard that in the film Butch Mystique. We give people an identity crisis. When they see us, it's like, wait a minute. So we've got.
I got to think about that. We really do, because I, even the way I'm dressed now, on my way coming here, I was going into Office Depot. I had the older ladies looking at me, then I had the men looking at me, and then the older ladies, they smiled at me, and the men was looking at me from head to toe to what I was wearing. Okay, so one guy said, "I don't know what to say, but that's a bad A tie." I said, "Okay, thank you." You understand? But they don't know how to approach us, and neither do they want to be offensive. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so as I've gone into this fully gear that I'm in now, I've learn to just accept. I've learned personally, this is my personal, because some women don't like this. Some women don't like to be called female, period. I don't have a problem because I know that's what I was, and that's what, you understand what I'm saying? That's what God made me, as a female. But my personality and my gender, as far as my spirit is concerned, I am really very masculine. You know what I'm saying? And people that know me, they respect me in that way. Some try to be funny and call me, "What's up, man?" And then I have to tell them, I said, you know what? I said, now, 10 years ago, I would have told you off. I said, but since I'm saved this year, I'm not going to say anything to you.
Tell me about our young people.
Oh, wow.
That you're reaching
I can
out
speak
to.
to that. I can speak to that.
What's happening with our young people, because there seems that they're coming out with
Several
I don't even know what to call it, but they're coming out in a way that they're I don't want to say angry, but they're angry. They're how do they negotiate their world? How is the Jerry Palmer group going to reach out to them? How do you minister to them?
I wish Alicia was here,
Me
because
too.
she's the baby of our leaders. We have 10 leadership cadre members, and we meet on a regular basis. And really, what you're speaking of is what prompted us to start the Jerry Palmer group. So, a little history is that about 5 years ago, at an intergenerational gathering that the A Lord Collective had, where elders were being taped, the idea of having a support group for an intergenerational support group for MILs came up, and that we would start the group at the Ruth Ellis Center, because that's where the youth were. And on the board of the Ruth Ellis Center, I'm there a lot, so I see and I hear and experience what some of the young people are doing when they come out, what their dilemmas are, right? And so that's how we really started. We felt like we needed to do some outreach. So no one ever really started the group back then. One phone call did it. We got a call from a school. We got a call from a school that had a crisis going on with the young women there. And these women happened to be masculine identified and mostly African American. And so they reached out to, they called me, and I said, we better bring the troops.
What was the grade level?
We're talking high school.
Okay.
We're talking 14,
12,
about 13 to 17, but mostly the average is about 15 years old. And they started a gang, all right? And there are reasons why, we start gangs, but there's violence involved, and so that became a problem for the school, and the school didn't know how to really manage what was going on. And so that's when I called Reverend Inger and several other people. Let's have a meeting. Let's develop some strategies so that we can help the school staff, help give some trainings, start some building trust with the women that are there, because one of the problems is that they're lacking some role models, and they're emulating that male masculinity that I was telling you about earlier, and they don't have any role models that reflect images of female masculinity, and that is women taking care of women and respecting each other, not hitting them, not being aggressive with them, but treating them like queens. So, and maybe Reverend Inger can talk a little bit more about some of the problems of some of our young people.
The main thing, I think you really said it, that they're angry, okay? And the part of the anger is just not with the society, it really starts at home. We have from various kids that I've talked to, and they were literally from the ages of 17 to now 26. When they wanted to come out, they were excommunicated from the family. You know what I'm saying? So they did not have anyone. They were already going through a trauma as it was. And then to be traumatized by their family to say, guess what? I don't want you because you are this way. So you have a teenager that's going through puberty, going through the change of being a lesbian, then going through the change of losing everything that they knew, whether it was good or not. They did not have it. So what it made them is to be very, very defensive, very, very angry, and very guarded and non-trusting. So when it came down to them trying to start up a relationship, of course, the only thing they probably did see was emulating the guy that took care or slapped their mother or choked their sister or something like that. So what do they do to their person that would do the same thing? So as a minister, my thing that I do talk to them about is to help them deal with that anger. And go along with understanding why there's anger, and then letting them know that God still loves you. You know what I'm saying? And then we have to deal. It's almost as being a psychotherapist going on with this, because that's the only way you're going to be able to heal. And that's why Dr. Kofi is his main leader, because of her knowing and understanding how it is to deal with individuals being so angry. But that's the whole issue. It's the anger aspect, and they're still trying to deal with who they are and what they are.
And we try to show them that masculinity does not have to be aggressive.
Right.
I'm
physical.
noticing that a lot, quite a few studs, bristas, masculine identified lesbians are now having their own children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what do you think about that? I mean, they're making the conscious decision, not like me, when I had to get married, and then I found out, and then I'm going to live my life. I'm very grateful for my children, but they're making a conscious decision now to have their own children, and I wonder if you can speak to that. Have you talked to any of them about?
I know we've
that
had young
issue?
people at the Ruth Ellis Center that have had children,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and
But
I
see,
think it's great.
it is great because they.
Forming our own families.
Yep, they're forming the families. Then on top of that, they're still in touch with their feminine side. You understand what I'm saying? Because everybody gets a maternal instinct. You know what I'm saying? You don't wanna. Me personally, I was allergic to pain, so I didn't have any kids. But I do get a maternal instinct, and God has blessed me with a godchild. So I'm not that godchild's father. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
But I'm masculine in the aspect that she knows that when G-Money says that's enough. She knows that, okay, I'm a parent, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? And you, as a woman, you do get that, and that's not. We're not denying anything that is
We're female bodies.
We're not denying
about
that. You know, and even the younger ones are really doing it. Okay, you have yours, I'm gonna have mine. So just in case, you know what I'm saying? And they're looking to the future as if they're going to possibly break up or not. You know what I'm saying? And